Right on that ridge along the woods there is about a 60-yard scatter and 15 yards wide. Now on this little bump over here that comes out of the woods, there's a consistent scatter of pottery with a little bit of bone and dark material that runs for 150 yards to where the soil darkens there, and I made that a breaking point. And it's another 100 yards from where the soil breaks to right here with another consistent light scatter of shell, bone, and pottery to where I'm standing, which is what I'm going to call the North Midden, which is right here. Ceramics, fire-cracked rock, dark stains, a little bit of bone. This midden is about 3 meters wide and runs for 16 meters toward the west. Now I'm standing at the east end of what I'm calling the South Midden. And the South Midden starts, it's 20 yards to the south of the North Midden, and it starts 20 yards to the east of it, and it runs toward the west for 20 meters heavily. And then there's a light scatter for another 30 meters, and the two middens kind of join. There's the North Midden, and they join right there, and then a light scatter runs for about another 100 yards after they meet. This is a close-up of the South Midden. You can see that looks like some type of a hoe or something that's been chipped out of stone. And you can see shell and pottery, pieces of limestone. Okay, right down there along the river, in between those two sandy high spots, this drainage I'm pointing at is where a late archaic site was at with heavy flint concentrations, where the water washed the topsoil off. That little sand ridge right there had one piece of pottery on it and a lot of chert, and this sand ridge over here had no pottery but had heavier chert and ran all the way up here to the woods. I'm following the tree line along the river. Up beyond that hill is LR431. Can't see it from here. Right there is LR453, that long grassy ridge. And right there my truck's parked on LR454. So you can see where we're at in the field, and I'm standing at the west end of both middens after they meet.
This looks like it might be one pot broken, all in one spot. If you can get all that together, maybe piece it together, or at least partially piece it together. Amazing, laying on top of the ground.
About a 700-year-old pile of trash. And at the river at the east end of the Cedar Bluff pottery site. Now that site started right about there where that washout's at, and the ceramics ran right along the ridge to about 20 yards beyond that. It's about a 60-yard long site total. It's about 10 yards wide. Now over on this next ridge, right next to it, there was a little bit of chert and one or two sherds on this side. Then when you go to the other side of it, that begins a scatter that runs all the way out to the two middens, which are out there about 150 or 200 yards. And I'm going to go over on top of this little hill right here and shoot straight down at the middens. Okay, now I'm at the end of this ridge, and stuff continued all the way into the woods to the edge of the river there. But I started finding ceramics right here, and there was an even distribution all the way out that ridge. And the ridge curves and cuts through, and where that darker dirt is, North Midden runs through there, and the South Midden runs right along the top of this ridge I'm standing on. And right upriver that way, about a mile, is what's called the Clampett site, which IU excavated, and it was a 1-acre village enclosed by a stockade. And the people were into agriculture. That's why there's not very many arrowheads out here, is because the people were into farming and they ate a lot of corn And the arrowheads you do find are true arrowheads. They're using a bow and arrow, and they had little triangular points. I'm beginning to think maybe they all came out of the same vessel. Because if you look over there, I've got 4 pieces that matched up already. When I get them home, I'm going to clean them up, try to match them up a little better. Right there is some kind of a handle. See from the side view. Curved lines in it called guilloche, which is a diagnostic of the Oliver Phase. To the normal person out there, this looks like a bunch of junk, but to a professional archaeologist, this stuff is great. I'm finding so many diagnostics, which are pieces which have attributes where you can tell what time period or what special type of artifact they are, that it's unbelievable. I'm finding all kinds of designs and rim sherds, and rims are a good diagnostic because you can tell more from a rim than any other part of a vessel. That thing's nice. See all those lines? Those are diagnostics. It's been decorated in a lot of different ways. There we have a piece of burned bone. When bone gets burned, it turns kind of dark and bluish colored and gets a hard coat on it. That was part of their dinner, and here's where they threw the bone out, but you can see the discoloration, and that's where it was burned, or it'd be chalky and white after this many years. There's a lot of other stuff around here. Right there's a big chunk of limestone I just picked up, which doesn't appear to be anything, but it was carried here by somebody for some reason. Orange thing is a block of chert, which is what the Indians would use to make flint tools out of, such as their arrowheads. They'd make them by taking another rock and knocking flakes off there and then finishing it down with an antler. I'm going to have to be careful. This one's already broke in 2 pieces. So I'm going to keep those together and probably glue them together when I get back home so they stay together. Pick up a couple more while I got the camera down here. Never know what's going to be on the other end. These are turning up pretty plain, but sometimes you'll turn them up and it'll be a real nice sherd with some fancy decoration. The 3 smaller ones I found on the site that I showed on the film right down on the edge of the river, and the big one I found earlier in the week on another site. That big implement is the thing that I found out in the field that I thought was a hoe or something like it. I'm not sure what it is. These are a few of the sherds that I found today with various types of decoration on them. I had 3 one-gallon freezer bags full of this stuff.
Quite an array of artifacts, distribution of shell. There's a large concentration of broken pottery. Several large potsherds.
There's a few pieces of mussel shell showing this year, but you don't have near the concentration you had last year on this side. Over the south midden got blasted pretty good by the flood water over there, and it's showing up real well. So I'm not even going to mess with this north midden. I'm going to go on over here and collect this south midden and try to film the location of everything. A couple of those same chunks of limestone are exposed again this year, so damn, that's a nice one. I've just located a projectile point out there. There you can see it's a small triangular point, which is just right. That's what you associate with the Oliver Phase and with this pottery. It was an actual arrow tip. They use bow and arrows. Most of the occupational time of Indiana, they were using spears with spear throwers or just spears on shafts. Most of what people call arrowheads are actually spearheads or knives. I'd say the overwhelming majority of them are knives. But what we have here is a small projectile point, a triangular one that was actually used on an arrow. That projectile point I just showed is right in front of that plastic bag there. I was walking back to put the camera in the case, and I noticed, you see a piece of plastic there, but right next to it is a base off another little triangular projectile point. Right there, that blue piece you see. There it is. Just the base off one. The tip of it's missing. It probably had some holes drilled in it. We're just seeing a small fragment of it. Real smooth slate. that had